Hello, welcome into a fresh edition of Chi Time with me, Clara Apollo, here on YouTube and also on podcast. If you're just listening to us, you can always head over to the YouTube channel to see what I'm wearing today. No, now then, um, as you know, this show is all about the energy behind everything. We're looking at how we're managing ourselves in this day and age with all the chaos and mayhem that's going on. How do we keep ourselves centered? How do we navigate from a place of truth? And how do we get on with each other? You know, these are sort of major questions, really. And to that end, I have a variety of excellent guests. And as you may have noticed if you watched this show before, that my last guest was Pam Gregory, the eminent international astrologer. So you can watch that again or listen to that again. But stay here right now because I've got Nathan Simmons with me, who I mentioned on that show because he's a free mind hypnotherapist and, in his own words, a part-time Jedi. He does a lot of very cool stuff, and he's got a new spirit medicine oracle deck coming up. But we're going to be talking about the energy behind how he created all of that. But also the connection with Pam is that he picked up on the Cheroklo aspect that she was speaking into. Cheroklo is said to have been the wife of Chiron, the wounded healer, and that she healed him merely with her authentic presence. And so I just think that is a beautiful energy to recognize within each and every one of us, that your presence, your authenticity has a very strong power to it, not just for yourself and your own being able to stabilize and look after yourself, but also the energy that you then radiate to others. And I know that this is something that Nathan agrees with me because he's nodding away. So I'm going to get him on now. Welcome back to Chi Time, Nathan Simmons.
Thank you, Clara. Again and again and again, over and over for every conversation. Thank you.
Bless you. No, it's so good to have you here in the Chi Time hot seat. And this time we're going to be speaking into how what it's been like creating. Well, it's a massive project, isn't it? You know, from where I'm looking anyway. Was it a 64 card oracle deck and connecting with spirit medicine? And can you give us an overview as to the power of this package that you're producing?
Yes, and I'm saying that with a slight snigger in my voice. So yes, thank you for that. And thank you for Pam Gregory for her insights and wisdoms and those details that she drops in, because that has really fed a lot of the work that I've been doing over the last 4 years, with those subtle details that she drops in. And that's kind of what sparked a lot of what's going on with the Spirit Medicine Oracle deck. So the Oracle deck is a 64 card deck, creating inspiration, invoking new ideas, new possibilities, working with 34 power animals, working with the 13 chakra system, working with shamanic invocation, the elements, and drawing our attention to those unique metaphors and stories and subtleties that we get from those things. So as a hypnotherapist, I really see that everything in life is a metaphor. Everything in life is telling us a story that we can tap into, through which we can find and activate more of ourselves. So the deck system itself, like many decks, you can pull a card, you can read the description, and you can sit and ideate and meditate on the description, on what the card evokes from inside of you. But it also comes with an affirmation. Each card comes with an affirmation that you can read to yourself to focus that meditation. But then there's a layer of depth that comes to that, which I haven't seen with other oracle decks. Each card comes with 4 questions, working on kind of a medicine wheel type approach. So working on the east, which is what am I leaving behind as I step into my new day? Working in the south, which is what lesson do I need to learn in order to make that, to make that step? On the west, what action do I need to take in order to move forward? And the north is what treasure is it I'm getting, am I receiving from taking that lesson and that action forward? So you can pull a card and work through the 4 journaling prompts, these 4 questions, to help, create some momentum, to create some new possibility. But then what happens is, as you sit with that deck, you can then pick 4 cards out and place those cards in each of the 4 directions, and then take the question from that direction to create a new coaching pathway.
Gosh.
And I checked it on ChatGPT, and I'm not sure ChatGPT was right. There's 2 answers here. So the first answer it gave me to how many permutations, how many coaching permutations can you create from this deck? The original answer was 3.9 billion.
Whew.
But I think that's wrong. But even so, if the other answer is correct, which is 1.6 million, I think it was, you have potentially 1.6 million permutations of spirit medicine wheel journeys that you can walk through as a coaching framework.
Wow. I'm just going to stop you there
Yes,
because that is a heck of a lot of energy to hold and
yes,
to weave together.
yes,
And and just for those of you listening and watching, this deck is going to be available in February 2025. And
yes.
so we're going to get Nathan on again in the early new year to speak more into how it's all going. But right now, just you've given us the overview as to what a mammoth project this is. And you know, you also have your hypnotherapy clients. You're a dad and a husband, and you dancing around the festivals this summer. You know,
Yes.
how on earth are you managing your energy when all of this is going on? Can you give us some like, yeah, a bit of an overview or an underview as to how you've been doing that?
Yeah, some of it has been with love and respect to the professions that we're all in, and we talk about self-care and how to look after yourself. And actually, some of that self-care for me has been pretty haphazard, and I haven't tuned in as clearly as I needed to for my own mental health and well-being. And at the same time, I knew this thing needed to be created. It was just naturally one breadcrumb, one step in front of the other, and what started off as 4 meditations that I wrote as I was learning the sacred songs of the Honey Quinn from the Amazon last January, like not last January, January before in 2023. These 4 meditations that I wrote then became the 64 meditations that sit behind this deck, that then became the Oracle deck. And that creative inspiration became all consuming. But what was happening last year, and it started to happen at the end of 2022, I was saying the same things to the same sorts of atypical clients that I was working with, and I was getting more no's than I'd ever received. The price wasn't right. They didn't have money. Something else was going on. I'm like, okay, cool. What's happening here? And it almost felt like my business was shutting down. So it caused me to start question what's going on at home. How am I going to uh, support my family? How am I going to support the house? We homeschool our daughter. My wife is there as a complete support mechanism for our daughter and supporting her education while I'm working per se from home. So I'm starting to reduce the number of clients I've got, but still this inspiration is pulling me forward. And it's just like, okay, well, where do I go? Do I go and drive and push against something that isn't kind of feeling like it's working and the clients aren't necessarily coming in? Or do I follow my heart-led passion and this joy and this inspiration? Where's the balance? And there's a reason to this. I followed the inspiration, I followed the passion, and I wrote these meditations, and it turned into 64 guided meditations, all written as short stories, so that you can read them to yourself as a self-coaching journey, a self-hypnosis script. You can use them to read as meditations to other people if you're leading yoga nidra or hypnotherapy sessions. And then the Oracle deck appeared. And all the time, it's just like there's this push-pull dynamic, and it's just like, oh my God. And that was at times I was really beating myself up for not being able to achieve what I thought I needed to achieve in order to feed my family. So how do you manage this self-care and how do you look after yourself? It's really important. So it's what I've learned through this experience is creating those balance points of like, okay, I need to take what time once a week. I need to book in time for me, because if it's not it's very masculine. If it's not in the diary, it doesn't happen. If it's not scheduled, it doesn't happen. So it's taking that time to do my own hypnotherapy journeys, taking the time to support myself.
That is so, so wise. And it's something that Pam mentioned as well in the interview about how she schedules in her downtime. And so I think that is a very helpful thing. I mean, I still use an old style diary as well as my Google Calendar, but I will just, there's a little symbol that I use that it denotes my time. My time is like, there's a sacred zone in, and it might get eaten away either side of it, but it's still in the middle and it still is there, you know. And I think it's this, we kind of need to train ourselves to prioritize self-care, because when we're on the computer all the time, which a lot of our work is these days, our
Mm.
shoulders get scrunched up, we get all this tension in our heads, so we've got all this light coming in. It's not good for us, for our creativity. It's not even very good for our productivity either, to be constantly on it. And this unwinding these old patterns of I've got to be doing is something that a lot of us have heard the message for. But how do we do it when we have got such a long to-do list? Do you let things fall off the bottom of your list? Because I do now. I just think, oh well, they can go on tomorrow's or next week's.
Yeah. And there are things that drop off, and there's, at times, I'm a human being. There's times that there's things that need to be on the to-do list that I forget to put on the to-do list, and then I get a reminder. It's like, oh crap, I need to go back and do that. And so it's just being mindful that, one, you're taking time once a week to look at your to-do list. You've got it structured in a kind of way where you know what the projects are, and
Mm.
you've got the actions in each of those projects. The one thing that my wife has been super supportive of, Anna, incredible human being, is we have a business meeting once a week to go through each of those projects.
Oh, that's great. So you have some reflection as well, and you have
Yes,
something to bounce those ideas off.
yes,
That is
because,
very helpful.
and I think with the ADHD type of mind and the amount of distractions and the attention pulling that we have in society,
Mm.
we need to take moments where we've got a council, a sounding board, a
Mm.
reminder that, especially for those people that are in the creative space,
Mm.
that they've got someone to hold that container with them. Yes, I'm a man. Yes, I identify as a man. Yes, I'm structured in my masculine, 100%. But there are times when I get into that inspirational, I get into that dream space, and I'm going into that very feminine kind of approach, and I lose that structure. And Anna and I ebb and flow between that. And in those conversations, she holds that structure for me, and enables me to come back to that,
Ah.
so that actually I know what needs to be done. And that reminds me to check in the morning when I'm looking at my to-do list now. And then I have certain meetings with people. It's like, oh yeah, I'm remembering seeing that person. Okay, that reminds me of that action that needs to go back on my list, to give
Yes.
me the structure and the insight. Because that energy piece, with those distractions, with the ADHD tendencies, it's very easy to get caught up on doing something or creating something, and all of a sudden you get to the end of the day, you've created and built a load of amazing things, but you haven't done the essential foundation piece, and it's very easy to spiral at that point and give yourself a hard time because you're not ready for a meeting, you're not ready for a project.
This is so true. And it's like, we have so many different areas of our life, almost like a clock face. We've got like 12 different segments or whatever that amount. And you may be really good at a certain, like, 8 or 9 of them. And then you kind of find the other 4 or 5 a little bit. And so you maybe don't do them as often. And it's like, but you still need to. And the less you do those ones that are a bit tricky, or just not as in flow for you, the more of a weight it feels like. And so if you can share this with someone else, in a way that kind of feels like there's a reciprocity occurring as well. So I mean, I don't suppose I'm not sort of talking in an ideal world. I'm talking in a practical world, that you just explain that with you and your wife. And if you've got a friend or a partner, that you say, could we just do an hour a week where I just chat about my business, and then we'll do another hour a week and we'll chat about yours, so that you support each other, but in a really practical way. You're not just having a chat. You're going, whoa, back up a bit. What about that bit? Oh yeah. Well, if you got that on that, and like we've just been having a chat behind the scenes about how I can really utilize the wealth of information that's come through Chi Time over all these years. I mean, it's got to be 10 years or something. And Nathan made some great suggestions for me to consider how I can repurpose some of the content by using the famous ChatGPT, which you've also have been encouraging us to get on board with. That can be a real assistant, using AI for what you want it to do, not like it's going to take over from you. Of course it's not. We're working alongside the artificial intelligence. I really think artificial is a strange word now, because it feels more like it's becoming more synergistic. Have you watched that? So this is a little aside. On Netflix, there's a series called Humans. I don't know if you've seen
No.
it. That's really, I'm just going to leave that there if you've not seen that. Those of you listening or watching, let us know. Drop us a message in the comment what you felt about that series, and I'll pick up on that on another episode. But yeah, this fear that we're going to get taken over by AI, it's like, why? It's just the next progression. And yeah, of course, I think there does have to be protocols in place and systems and checks and all of that. We don't go blindly into this world. But
Right.
my goodness, I have found it very helpful to bounce ideas around in the chat GTP when I've been working on some copy for myself and not having someone to bounce it around with. Whack it in there and it will come back with a slant on it that I hadn't thought of. And have you found this really helpful with building your Oracle deck then?
Hugely, hugely, because when I look at the books, etc., and the frameworks, the coaching frameworks, these are things that I've learned over the years, and I put these coaching frameworks in there as different ways of using the Oracle deck to gain wisdom and insight, to use a coaching framework to support how the Oracle deck rolls out. And then when you're doing research and you're wanting to know the stories and the myths about the asteroids that Pam Gregory talks around, and he's like, okay, how can I get that information faster without having to go through 50 different websites to triangulate information? It's like, I can, okay, put some questions in here, explore that information, then do some research off it, and reduce the research time by like 90 to 95%. So it's like, how can we leverage that in the most healthy, wholesome possible ways? Now, the other beautiful way is, and I'm being very transparent with this, is the images on the decks have been made with MidJourney AI. Now, there is questions, and some people have got their own opinions about it. Great, and I fully appreciate all of those. And the question that was asked to me in alignment to that was, what about, is this putting other people out of work? Now, the speed at which I was working last year in creating 64 meditations to create the images in the nicest possible way, I wouldn't have been able to afford to pay a graphic designer to create 64 images and to go back with corrections and to come up with ideas. It would have taken me months and hundreds of thousands of pounds probably. So what has happened is I've used the key words from the meditations I've written. I've put them into MidJourney, created these images, sifted through them to find the right image that supports either the imagination and the internal foci of the meditation. But then some of the images that have come back have then created an adjustment in the journey for me. It's like it's inspired me to go back and change what I've written. And I'm using other people's artwork to inspire the journeys. I haven't used their artwork in the deck. I've used their artwork to inspire what I've written about. So it's like drawing all these resources. How can we draw that inspiration faster? How can we create quicker, still from a very human, still from a very heart-led space, and leverage optimally all the tools that are available to us?
Oh, this is brilliant. This is such a step forward because the amount of solo entrepreneurs that get burnt out doing all this background work while they're producing their next heart-centered and spirit-inspired, for want of a better word, product.
Yes.
But and no one knows what's goes on behind the scenes there. They just see the end product, and then everybody wants to. Most people would like to have it at reduced rate, and you kind of like, you know, idea how many hours I put into this, and not that that's but it is it's a thing, and it's not talked about enough. I don't think it's like, oh, don't tell. But if we've got now a facility that helps to speed up our process, so we can still self-care to the level that we know is healthy, and produce the items that we are drawn to produce because we can feel how very useful they are at this time, and because everything's moving so quickly, you notice with books being produced now, you can self-publish. You don't have to wait a whole year. And when things need to be manifested now, don't they? In the energy of now. And is that what you think? This is what is really helping us to do, not only free up more of our time, but also to be able to produce things in the flow of things and not have to wait for 3D to sort of catch up with that.
Yes, this is the physical speeding up of the manifestation process. There is that moment of the Newtonian to quantum transition. It's the, I'm having this thought, and depending on what is in place and my resources available and my internal belief structures, etc., then dictates how quickly that manifestation takes place. I put my order into the universe and I wait for the universe to provide that. And is there complete clarity in here? Do I have the resources available, and is that in, you know, congruent and in alignment with what I'm producing? So these tools enable us to do this. So last year, as I was pulling everything back, because I thought I was going in one direction, but actually the universe was creating space for me to create this. And I was struggling with my business because, as you talked about, there's this need for resources. Well, if you're a single parent, or you're homeschooling and one of your partner or your parents is doing it, the responsibility on me to produce two people's wages, not just one person's salary, to house and feed the family. There's a pressure, psychological pressure that comes with that. And many of us have these dreams. It's like, how do I write a book? How do I get my product out there? How do I do the thing that I know is deep within me, but I have to go and work 40 hours in a job that I don't enjoy? So there's all these psychological, mental health challenges that come. It's like, how can I make this easier? So following the inspiration, using the tools available in the best possible way, and making the most of that, and using those to build from, speeds things up. So when I say to people, last year I wrote 8 books, most people look at me like I've got 3 heads. The ones that know what it's like to write a book and the implementation, and the fact that I built all of that, I wrote them all, I built them all on Canva. Yes, your good self and a couple of other people have helped to proofread those manuscripts, etc. And there's still a little bit of work to do in those from earlier writings. But the time it takes to do that, and to write 8 books, to build them on Canva, to get the images and create the covers and do all of that, that's all on me because of the dynamic of what's happening here. It's just like, how can I leverage what I've got to express more of myself?
And how can you still self-care yourself around all of that?
Yes.
Late night cacao drops and all of that. It's like, yeah, fair enough, but I need to also sleep and take care of myself. So what is coming about here is this about manifestation and frequency. And it's something that I've learned in this year's journey that I've been with the Akashic record clearing that followed on from my free mind hypnotherapy training that I did with you. And of course, having the Qigong underpinning everything. But going through that, you know, clearing out the dross in your back catalogue, in your back room, in your quantum subconscious, all the things that you've kind of done some work on before in the past, and you've got a certain amount of it being dislodged, but it feels like pesky. There's a whole different language that is being used in the subconscious that we're getting more and more of a connection with now. And I remember I do thank you hugely for guiding me deeper into that space, because I think that I had been trying to do things myself, and my meditations were like, okay, but they weren't really developing. And when I linked up with Nathan and he talked me through some of the free mind way of approaching it, it gave me a whole new way in, something that I use daily that I'm so appreciative of now, that is different every time. And it's like, so I was bringing that into the Akashic record clearings as well, to how deeply can we go in to dislodge the old funk, for want of a better word, and give space to bring in this freshness and this newer, this uplifted vibration of a lighter kind of joyful frequency that can then take you into other arenas within yourself, to then allow the creative process to land in you and birth through you. So that's what as far as I can make out, we are vessels to birth that the creative spark of spirit through us, and all the dross gets in the way. So our work is to get rid of those layers and levels. And now you've brought in an oracle deck that's going to take it to another level of going, okay, let's look at it from that angle and that angle. And even if, I think you were saying that even if you're an experienced practitioner, you're coming into these questions. So Nathan asks really pertinent questions that are sometimes not very comfortable, but because they're not very comfortable, what do you say? They're on the money. Yeah.
Yeah, they're on the money. But this is, it's again, the moments that had the biggest problems is I was having a breakthrough in what I was creating and it was making sense. But then there was this other part of me is like, well, you're not doing enough of this and you're not doing that and you're a shortfall here and you're not good enough to do that. And who do you think you are? And all that stuff. But as we get closer to our truth, it's that the idea that I share with people is as we expand, as there's an expansion, we have to nurture the contraction. You can only go as I think it's Karen Drucker, I think, I can't remember the singer's name, but is that you can only go as fast as the slowest parts of you. So there's this wrestle, that there's this tussle where the body wants comfort and it wants security, but the soul's screaming out for expansion and connection to spirit. So you constantly go through this earthly kind of wrestling match with your own psyche. So as you go into that, it's like, how do I nurture that part of me? How do I speak to my subconscious? How do I stop the distractions? How do I stop them quicker? Because we're messy humans. It's like, oh, do we all have addictive traits? Yeah, because of the way society's built and the traumas we're all carrying. It's like, but as you create, it's just like, what am I bringing to the world? How dare you? How dare you bring this to the world? So it's like, okay, what part of me is feeling that? Then you can kind of nurture that part and you can have the cry, and then you catch yourself going into the addictive patterns first. Like, oh, I've just been scrolling on Instagram for an hour and a half and didn't, I've gone falling into a scroll hole. And it's like, you catch yourself quicker. Yeah. But then at the same time, you see the patterns coming up. What addiction, what behavior is coming to the surface that is now a window through which to see myself more clearly, which then becomes the door through which I can find myself more consciously. And then as you do that, as you step through, then another layer of the creation comes forward. But it's taking the time to realize that. It's like the whole thing is the cemetery's full of a million good ideas.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just trusting that internal locum, that drive is like, what is asking to come out of me? What level of depth are we going to go to with this? What new thing takes this beyond what was ever known before? And actually, I do dare to create the next layer of whatever it is to give more people that access. And again, I come back to Pam's work, because the way that she talks about astrology now is like, yeah, here's this the X number of planets that we work from Mercury to Pluto, if we're using that as a planetary object. But then hold on, there's this whole realm of asteroids out there, which is another layer of story and myth through which to find ourselves. I don't personally feel that we can just use an oracle deck now that has a couple of nice pictures on it to give us that inspiration. We need to go a layer deeper. We need to connect the cerebral, the conscious awareness to get out of the echo chamber of our own head, to then go in and find that piece of us. And yes, that's going to be uncomfortable, but is it going to be on the money? Yeah. Like in physical terms, yeah, we can create and we can have money and we can be beautifully rich, not filthy rich, because there's already a connotation in that language. We can be beautifully rich, we can support each other, we can make these things accessible, and we can find more of ourselves in that. But it requires a little bit of discomfort, a little bit of tension. But it doesn't require you to roll around in your muck for days on end, which I have done at times with this project.
Yeah, on a bad day, on an ebb day, uh,
Yeah, on an ed day.
on an ebb day or a yin day even. So I was thank you for that. That was just brilliant. I cannot wait for this deck to come out. And as I said, we will be getting you back on the show to talk about this in the early new year. But as you were saying this about this whole like, how dare I do it? As you're listening and watching to this, what do you dare? What do you dare to do? What's your big dare? Because the world needs your daring actions and sharings and connections and bigger, brighter, bolder. The more of us that are doing this, the more of us that can encourage one another too. This is how we birth the new earth, and it's happening right now. And sometimes if I've got an ebb day or a yin day and I'm going, oh no, I just ask, how am I going to do this? And it's like asking spirit, asking higher self, just asking the question, how can I do this? I've got a dare here and I've got all this stuff to do, but I know this is something. How am I going to do this? I'm in a book writing club with the amazing Unbound Press, Nicola Humber. And this is the question is like, what will you write today? And I'm asking, how will I find the space to be able to write what I'm here to do today. So it's in your conscious mind, because your conscious mind is controlling the 3D. So you need to get it on board, as you said, with what the subconscious is wanting to birth through. How can we work as a team? You know, that's it. All these different aspects of self. And then some of them are battling. As you say, you've got this internal sort of psyche war going on this way, that way. And I think this coming into, that's why I found the Qigong really helpful for, was that figure of eight movement and the coming back to that center point of zero balance, that you can be in your center line, connected to the earth and to the heavens, but it also brings you into that higher soul perspective. I think Pam refers to it as your eagle's perch. And you can be aware of these different aspects of self, but that core center being, along which your chakras are, your dantians, but there's a presencing of this drawing in, that's what saves me from myself, is just coming into that quietude and stillness. And sometimes it requires some shaking and some moving, but returning to center time and again strengthens it, gives me a place to navigate from, and a place to be a little bit messy. And sometimes if I feel a bit wobbly, it's like, just go to that place inside. I don't know if you've got a practice that's like that, as that goes on for you.
My key practices that I need to do more of, and I do enough, I've got quite a lot of now, is basically sitting at a key time of the day and just working for 9 minutes. 9 minutes just to just to focus my attention on what it is I'm creating, and that I'm pulling in the right people into my world and magnetizing that and supporting those things. And that's my mental kind of focus. But then it's also sitting with, I know what my laundry list is. I know physically and mentally what my blockers are, where I want to improve as a man in my own men's health, my own psyche, the things that challenge me. Even yesterday, as we record this, the stationary direct of Mercury bringing up self-confidence, self-worth, these questions is like, actually, am I worthy? It's like, but then holding that is just not trying to ignore it, not trying to outwork it, not trying to drink more coffee to can it off or whatever. It's just taking the time to kind of sit with that. Okay, I'm aware of that. I need to speak to that with my wife. So there's that aspect. Working with plant allies, working with different consciousnesses in order to support that. Right now we're working with fly agaric, the Amanita muscaria mushroom. Legal mushroom is tincture. We're using that for our dreaming to help clear some of that clutter and to do some of that deeper healing, and using that to just create a bit more space, a bit more levity about what's going on, and to create a bit more focus. So doing those things. And the other part is doing my own hypnotherapy journeys. I know that they are value add, they're helping other people. And at the same time, do I take enough time to do them? No. Do I need to take time on a weekly basis to do my own work? So as I see those pain points, okay, what journey do I pull out of the, do I go digging in the crates for and hit play on to do my own healing work? So it's scheduling that time, to speak to your significant others that can help you move forward, speaking to yourself in a clear way in order to do your deeper work so that you can show up more clearly in the work that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. This word scheduling has come in. So Nathan runs his hypnotherapy around the cycles of the moon. So you do a new moon and a full moon. And I can't always get to it the time that you're doing it live, but I absolutely love bringing it into my own scheduling of an early morning meditation. That's when I like to do it. And if I can get it in a very early morning, so maybe I wake up at sort of 5 o'clock, run the meditation, then have a cheeky second sleep. Oh my goodness, that takes me to a complete realm that I really need to be visiting. It will have brought me to that space through having done the meditation. So it's a very important part of how I take care of my inner world as well. So thank you for that, Nathan. Thanks for all that you bring to our world. And how can people find out more about you? Where can they go?
Spiritmedicine.world is my website currently. I definitely need to do more updating on that, or you can find me at Deeper Healing and Beyond on Facebook and on Instagram.
Great. And is there anything that you'd like to just make sure that we're connecting with people here about, in a last little message for them to how to manage their energy maybe, or just something that you want to share?
Yeah. Tangible takeaway is when we're in victim consciousness, and I use that in kind of loose terms, floating speech marks. When we're creating, when we're leading, victim consciousness works in statements and rhetorical questions that hold us in our space and hold us where we are. So it's really important. That's why I use these questions in the Oracle deck, in order to shift the perspective. Why can't I do this? What's wrong with me? These are questions that just keep us in that, you're not good enough. Is we just change it to a question that creates momentum. What is it I need to do, be, or see right now? What is it I'm bringing to this? Why is this important to me? So that we inspire a movement from within. It takes us out of the distraction. It takes us out of the stuckness and enables us to kind of see where we need to be so that we can implement and influence. And it just gives us that gentle nudge to get out of the old structures which are holding us back.
Yeah, brilliant, beautifully said, and takes us off the hamster wheel, because we can feel it go round and round. How do I get off this? There's another question. How do I get off the hamster wheel? Well, the fact that you even realize there is a hamster wheel and you're asking how means that you're going to find a way to do that. And I say, just jump. Just jump. Yeah, and I think the big one for me is trusting the process. I know it's said a lot, but I think to embody that piece is been really important for me. If things are getting very dicey, it looks like they are in the 3D, I trust the process, because there's a much bigger process at play for all of us at the moment. And if we're stepping into our truth, we're connecting with the elements, the earth and the sky and one another through our hearts, then we're in the right frequency. We're and so we will be supported and we will find a way through. So that is my little end of Chi time encouragement, to trust your process and to trust your energy as a guidance as to where to be leading next, or who to hang out with, because that's another big one. But anyway, let's just leave that question hanging for this episode of Chi Time. And thank you all so much for listening and watching. And thank you, Nathan, for sharing all that you do. I'll be looking forward to hearing you and seeing you again in the early new year. And I wish you so much luck with this. Not that you need it because it's already rolling and running, but I do. I think this is going to really help so many people around the world. And I'm looking forward to getting a deck myself. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you all for listening and watching. As I say, your energy is important, and so are you. Much love. Keep your chi up, my friends.